Well, as is a tradition both of the Jewish people and of the church, that you pray before pretty much doing anything. So let's pray and give honor to the Lord. So, Father in heaven, we bless your name for your word. Your word is true. Your word is light. And we bless you for your spirit that gathers around us, uniting us all from no matter where we are, even for vast distances. We can indeed be close in your name. We pray your presence again tonight. B'Shem Yeshua. Amen. All right, brothers and sisters. The first Torah portion we're going to be looking at is Nasso, Numbers 4 to 7. And it starts with one of those controversial things. You do something that the Torah told you not to do. Okay, which is count people, right? You know, you get told at the start, don't count people. And then as you go through the Torah, you actually realize that they count people about like 6 or 7 times. But it starts with the Lord talking to Moses. Now remember, Moses and Aaron, they have this interesting relationship where every now and again God will speak with Aaron directly, sometimes even to Aaron only, but for the majority, leadership is given over to his brother Aaron, even though in the end, it's actually going to be the lineage of Aaron that survives, not Moses. So God speaks to Moses and asks him to take a census of a particular group of people. It's going to start counting not just Levites, but within the Levitical clans, particularly groups of people. And the Hebrew is quite interesting because it reflects on something that we do today, something that causes people a lot of tension. What is that, I hear you ask? All right. Well, let's read just in English the first couple of verses, then I'll switch to have a look at the Hebrew. When the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take a census of the sons of Gershon, also by their fathers' households and by their families, from 30 years and upward to 50 years old, you shall number them, all who enter to perform the service, to do the work in the tent of meeting. Okay, so that's an interesting translation. Why is it interesting? Because in English, it almost makes no sense. You've doubled up a lot of words there. What are you trying to say? Take a number of all those who perform the service to do the work. Perform work service. What are we talking about here? Okay, in Hebrew, it says mi ben shloshim, so from a son of 30, shana ma'ale ad ben chamishim, so when from up until the age of someone a son of 50. Then it says tikfod. This is to prepare or the ones who are doing, literally, it's the ones who are sitting at a cash register. That's what we call them in Hebrew today. But the people who are performing work, all these who come, otam kol haba, litziva sava. So the what they're talking about, they've translated the word service, literally means all those who you take to the army. Okay, because the word for army in Hebrew is a tzava. And so these are military age people. And the way the Hebrew structures is take the people who should go to the army, letzava, but what they do is they do it tzava la'avod avodah ba'ohel. They're the ones that do us an army in the tent of meeting. Literally, that's what it says. Okay. So take people who are supposed to go to the army, but they're not going to the army. They're going to army the camp. They're going to army God. They're going to army the sanctuary. So it's the same word for army service. So what does that mean? That means that some people went to the army and other people went to serve God. Well, what bearing does that have in today's world? I hear you ask, in the land of sunny Israel, because this is where the Orthodox Jews say we don't have to go to the army. we have a command in the Torah that says, you guys go to the army, and we the good guys, we go and serve God in the temple. But actually, if you want to get really literal, it's just for a certain group of Levites, right? Which means some Levites did go to the army. And the Levitical clans, they performed, as we've seen through the Torah so far, some very vital functions within the society of the Jewish people. They were the judges, the judiciary, right? They were the ones that if you had a problem, you didn't go to law courts, you went to the priests and the Levites. You said, I've got an issue, my neighbor's been stealing my land or taking my sheep, or that kind of stuff. And you would actually talk to a priest about it. Okay, and the same guy who's actually going to now handle your judicial situation will also be the guy who handles your work and worship of the Lord. At the same time, some of them also went to fight. They probably were like the holy warriors that were inside the main army, encouraging the troops, not just with battle tactics, but with let's all know why we're fighting. And perhaps when as they say, there's no atheists in foxholes. We're about to go to battle. Find me the nearest Levite. I need to pray. Need to make some confession or something like that. Army chaplains, we might call them today. So this is the from this opening section of Nasso, you get the modern day decision where we say we don't go to the army. We actually sit around and study Bible, and that has caused all kinds of tensions in this country, as the community that's not going to the army is getting bigger and bigger, while the people who are refusing to actually do combat, it's becoming less and less. All right. So then there is a discussion on how you dismantle the tent, and which is, I think we've mentioned it in a couple of different parashah. Always interesting, because you're not meant to enter the Holy of Holies, right? Except once a day. Problem is, so how do you take it down? Right? Because obviously someone's going to have to actually physically enter it. And so what this little passage now tells us is the amount of detail that they went into trying to protect everything that was inside, everything that was holy. And so there's quite a detail as to who gets to pack the stuff up, who gets to carry it, and how you do it. And how you do it, in verse 5, in verse 5 of Nasso, sorry, not verse 5. The way you pack it up is you use the curtain, what's called the parochet, the veil, the separating veil. You come in and you take that down, and you use that to move forward, put on top of the Ark of the Covenant, and then wrap it up. And what's interesting is, of course, is that stuff is made up of a special material, which no one knows what it is. It's called tachash. And so the Ark of the Covenant is wrapped up in this material, and it's the parochet, it's the veil, the curtain in the temple. So you take a lot of care to make sure that you don't see inside the Holy of Holies. You carefully position yourselves, dismantle the curtain, then move forward, and then put the curtain over the top of the Ark of the Covenant, wrap it all up nice and carefully. So when you actually pick it up and move it, you're not actually physically looking at holy things, and you're actually not coming into contact with them, because people who do come into contact with them die, right? And so you've got this big idea of being shielded and coveted, and there's a lot of detail about who can and who cannot touch the veil. So what's so important about that, I hear you ask? Well, one, it answers how they move the tabernacle, but two, it makes what happened in the Gospels very interesting, right? Because who's tearing the veil? who's now being able to look inside the Holy of Holies when you weren't supposed to be doing that at all, and all those kinds of things. So the shielding curtain, the parochet, had been destroyed in the Gospels, and who was actually going to repair it, which is never explained in the Gospels, of course. And this particular group of people who were actually going to be doing this, the Kohathites, or a group of special family from the Levites, and from them comes a very special person, Korah. Right? So the man who rebelled against Moses and ended up getting the ground swallowed up under him. He's one of the guys who carries the ark. He's got one of the most special jobs in the entire community, apart from obviously Moses and Aaron. So it's not like he had no responsibility, or he had no claim to fame. He actually was serving in the temple and had this very special job of being able to carry the ark. So then, after this little incident, which tells us a little bit about how they do that kind of stuff, and puts a spotlight on the tearing of the veil in the New Testament, we then have to purify, make sure that the camp is purified, so that the people of God are holy. Not only are they holy, but also healthy. And so when people begin to notice various diseases, you get this idea of containment and separation, so that if you see something that looks a bit suspicious, you actually put them outside of the camp, and they stay there until they're fixed up, which is classic good health. Okay, and this is something that the Western world forgot, particularly during the years of the plagues, and something that we still don't do today. Okay, once our societies have grown to such a large level, we don't actually really often know what to do about viruses. So we have, like in today's world, when the coronavirus came, we went and shut everything down. But now we don't. I don't know exactly the 100% the laws that you have in Canada, but in Israel there are none. So even if you have corona, you can walk around town, right? It's completely up to you now how you handle this. But the Bible here has this idea of look, we need to have this idea of purity and holiness, and also health that goes with it. And so there's a containment and an idea of isolation. Then you end up with this little section between verses 5 and 10 in chapter 5 of restitution for various wrongs. So we're not really sure what they've done. It is a generic, when a man or a woman does something wrong in some way, and they are unfaithful to the Lord, right? So there's a link there that if you do something wrong against a human, it's not just wrong against a human. You're actually also doing something wrong against God. This is an act of being unfaithful to the Lord. So how you treat others is a reflection of how you treat God. And so by extension, if you're treating God good, you should there by definition keep treating other people good. And so one way of measuring your fruit, so to speak, of where you think you are with God, look at how you actually are with humans, which is an interesting thought, isn't it? That God cares about human relationships as much as he cares about relationships between himself and humans. And so once you've done some sort of sin, what should we do, brothers and sisters? Quick, let's get off to the tabernacle and start killing some animals. No, make restitution with the guy that you've annoyed, right? And not only that, add 20%, okay? Add a fifth. So we discover that when you actually do something that's actually deliberate, so this is now an intentional sin, okay? You actually make restitution directly with the person. Okay, and if you can't figure out how to get to the other person, then you get your substitute, which is the priest, and the priest gets sacrifice. Okay, so it's an interesting way that you can see how the society was actually functioning. So you had the sacrificial system, and we have to remember that was purely for the worship of the Lord and for unintentional sins. But if you actually had done stuff wrong, well, you actually used the judiciary. Okay, you had the priests involved, but you also then, and you did it interpersonal, and you paid back via money, which is exactly how we do it today. Although we don't use the priests as the judiciary, we use the judiciary, right? We have law courts, and we sue the pants off each other, so that we can actually get restitution. And it's not just 20%, man, we'll take the house, the car, and your grandmother. Okay, but the Bible sort of really keeps it down to, like, let's just be fair here. Okay, you have your product, whatever it is that you've wronged, you've got your damages, and then you've got a fee for damages, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so you can't claim 3 million for your strained eye. All right, those kinds of dumb stuff. But so there is the restitution for wrongs describes. It's only like 10 verses. It's huge long chapters about unintentional sin and sacrifices, and we tend to focus on those. But we actually see how the Israelites actually functioned. Okay, the actual society functioned was just like we do today, and then the rest of chapter 5 brings up this very interesting little piece of what essentially looks like magic. Okay, so what is going on? The test for an adulterous wife. Okay, so we get this discussion between God. The Lord says to Moses, speak to the Israelites, if a man's wife goes astray and is unfaithful to him, so that another man has sexual relations with her. So we're definitely talking about adultery here. And it is hidden from her husband, which means the husband has no clue, right? Which, of course, then starts to beg the question, why are we making this law? So first of all, the husband doesn't know that his wife's being unfaithful. So why is this law here? Because if he did know that his wife was unfaithful, well, we can figure out what to do about that, can't we? Right? But so you've got this very, very first gray areas, like, who are we actually talking about here? And how, like, this we've got a guy in a tent, and he wakes up one day and says, I'm a bit suspicious about my lady. Why would he be suspicious? What's she doing? What's she not doing? Why? Like, what's his problem? Maybe he's just the suspicious type, jealous type, or something. And so you end up with this process. So we've got trouble in the tent, trouble at home between a man and a woman. We're going to fix it up. And what you do is you come to the priest, because we're talking about law here. And then you end up with this very strange, a magical formula, which ends up, you create a potion. And you think, what is this doing in the Bible? Why can't we just simply go to the priest with his little chest plate and his ephod with all the little lights, and we just ask, why can't we do that? So we've got this scenario. Now, it's in the Bible, which means that it's not going to be ignored by our Jewish sages. And so they have a little bit of they wouldn't have a field day, so to speak. But what they do is they look at this thing and they go, wow, you know what? This never happened. Okay, there's actually a couple of things in the Bible where the Jewish sages will say, this never happened. And then they'll go, well, what's it there for? And they'll say, look, it looks really weird, doesn't it? That it looks like it's a little form of magic. Let's inscribe the name of God on a piece of paper. I mean, why would we do such a thing? And then we'll make her drink it, because that seems like a lot of fun. Like, if you actually have the name of God on a piece of paper in modern day Judaism, you cannot destroy that piece of paper. right? If you and so you, in Jewish computers, those are the circumcised ones. No, in computers that actually have programs that actually in Israel that have where the name of God appears on a page. If you go to press print, a warning will pop up before you can even press print, and it'll say, you are about to print the name of God. Do you wish to proceed? Because you know that you must never destroy this piece of paper. You can't rip it up and put it in the bin or anything like that. That's got the name of God on it. So you have to put special places in your house where you stack up all these useless pieces of paper with the name of God on. So they give you that's how highly valued we have the name of God. But here we're going to write the name of God on a piece of paper and make some girl drink it. Why would you desecrate the name of God such a way? So they look at the story of what's going on, and they say, you know what? This actually has to be an allegory. It can't be actual literal. So the classic Jewish take on this section is that this is a story of a sinful woman, Israel, and a faithful husband, God. And it's actually an allegory between these two. Is that so? Why is Israel's sin hidden from the Lord? How could Israel possibly hide anything from God? What has she done with the name of God? Etc., etc. And so it becomes something like that. It becomes not a literal magical formula where they say this actually physically happened, but they actually have it as an allegory between Israel and the Lord, just like Song of Songs. Right? It says the allegory is not a foreign exegetical way of reading the Bible method. So Song of Songs is either an erotic love poem, and if you take it literally, you've got to start asking, what is an erotic love poem doing in my Bible? What does Solomon really care about this one girl? He's got 1,000, right? And so they they will say this has to be a love story between God and Israel, and that's why you read it at Passover. Okay, that's the book you read at Passover. So here they have a look and they go, this is also an allegory, and it's us. Okay, it's us. We're the ones that constantly trying to hide from the Lord, and instead, and we're never sure. And it's got to do with fertility, right? Because so one midrash is, why does the husband suspect the wife? Because she can't get pregnant. Right? She can't seem to get pregnant, and so that's why I suspect her. And where do they get that idea from? From verse 28, where if the woman has not made herself impure, she is clean. She will be cleared of guilt, and she'll be able to have children. Right. So the issue is fruit. The fruit of the womb, because what happens when you drink this crazy formula, then the belly swells up, right? So it's got something to do with your womb, it's got something to do with fertility, and so that becomes allegory and such like that. So there's no test for the man. Notice this, right? There's no it's all one-sided. Although I did find one midrash which talked about the water, which is in plural, mime, and so therefore they said both guys had to drink it. All right, but the actual literal text doesn't say anything about men at all. Okay, and the penalty is not death. Right? If you discover that her belly does bloat up, oh my gosh, she is sleeping around, then what should happen? What's the penalty for adultery? Well, death. But here you don't. Verse 27 is the penalty, right? if she has made herself impure and has been unfaithful to her husband, what should have happened next in the sentence is take her out the camp and stone her. But that doesn't happen. Okay. Then that she is made to drink, and the water brings a curse and causes bitter suffering. It will enter her, her abdomen will swell, her womb will miscarry, and she'll become a curse. Okay, so what's the penalty? She gets cursed. Okay, by whom? How? With what? Right? Again, infertility. So because the actual text doesn't seem to make any literal sense, that is, it's actually going against a variety of commandments, that is the reason why it is read as an allegory, that this is actually Israel. And if we're unfaithful, we'll eventually get found out, and instead of being a blessing, we will be the opposite of blessing, which is a curse. But if we are faithful, then we will be fruitful, not just in our own families and in our own economies, but also in the world itself as a light actually to the nations. So that's how this little passage is read. So when we read the Bible and we come up with some of these strange stuff, this is, I'm going to be generalizing here, but this is probably why some people, when they have their Bible studies, really don't understand the Old Testament. Right? We come to these passages and we go, what is going on? These crazy, this is definitely not the same God and all those kinds of things, because they're not thinking in terms of the way Jewish people think, where they'll look at the text and go, yep, it really does look strange. And instead of running away from it, they dig into it and they go, there's so many strange gaps here. This must be a story between us and God. It's got to be something special. And therefore, what's the takeaway for Jewish people for all this? Let's be faithful and let's be fruitful. Right? Let's not chase after other gods. Let's actually do our job, and we will bring a blessing to the world. So this then is the backdrop for another story that occurs in the New Testament. And what is it, I hear you ask? Well, you're all muted, so you can't talk. It is John chapter 8. The woman caught in adultery. Although there she's actually caught. But, right, there's no man. Just like here, there's no man. And they're trying to actually do the stoning, which is the normal way of doing it. Had it has been just a suspicion, we would have been doing this magical potion thing. And so Yeshua could have turned around and said, okay, you guys suspect her of adultery, or you actually know she's in adultery. And if they had suspected her, which means they haven't proved it, well, then what they should have been doing is this little special drink. Yeshua could easily have said, guys, you've already got the rules. What are you bugging me for? Let's get the drink. Let's make up the magic potion, and away we go. And if you could make up some spare stuff, I'm going to go to the Galilee and sell it and pay for my ministry. But what he does is he actually, just like the text itself, this text ignores Torah, and Jesus ignores, put it in inverted commas, Torah. Do you understand where you can actually do this kind of stuff? And at the end, Jesus says, go and sin no more. Go be fruitful. Don't be a curse, be a blessing. Right? It's exactly the same in Yan, back exactly the same intention. So, which is I found that quite interesting when I was looking at it. So then we get the Nazirite vow, okay, which is going to play up a little bit more in the next Torah portion, but it's about guys who end up, not cutting their hair, not drinking alcohol, all this kind of stuff. But again, the text is quite vague, not in what you can and can't do. That gets nice and clear. Okay, about no taking razors to your heads or this, that, and the other, and don't drink certain drinks, etc. But it starts off, speak to the Israelites, for man or a woman can say women can do these vows too. Isn't that interesting? You often only ever hear about men running around as Nazarites, but women can be Nazarites as well. Okay. If they make a vow of dedication. Okay. Yep. So what's the question there? What vow? Right? What's the vow of dedication? Dedicated to what? Yeah, I know I'm dedicated to God, but to do what? For what? For how long? Right? There's no context. There's no, what is the nature of the vow? What has caused these people to do such a thing? What's the answer? There's no reason. You just have this thing called a Nazarite vow, and then there's no background to it. Now, it does give you some physical signs of how you're definitely separated from your family or from the community to the Lord, because you're now not doing certain things. Your hair is going to be rather long. You're going to have, which is going to look really good when you go to rock concerts, but it's going to you're not going to be intoxicated and stuff like that, which is not going to be good when you go to rock concerts. And now we have two guys that end up in the Bible definitely as Nazarites. We don't have that many. Okay, Samson, who was a Nazarite from birth. Okay, and John the Baptist, who's a Nazarite from birth. But everything else, we're not sure when that they make the vow. There is one midrash I found which says that the actual period was around 30 days. I don't know if that's true or not, or where the midrash came from. He didn't give any proof text or source, to just said it. So I'm not sure, but so we have this thing called a Nazarite vow, which involves not cutting any hair. Be important. Hang on to that one for next portion. Then you have the priestly blessing, which we all know, the Aaronic benediction, which is used all over the world now, not just by Jews, now by lots and lots of Gentiles. And it's the language of the text is reflected in some old traditional liturgies. What do I mean by that? So the Lord said to Moses, right? We're creating a liturgy, right? Tell Aaron and his sons. So obviously God could have told Aaron and his sons himself, but no, it's going to come through Moses. This is how you bless Israel. So when you pray, no free-form prayer here, boys. This is how you actually do it. And then you get the what we call the Aaronic benediction. And so who's actually blessing the people? Right? There's a tension who's doing it? Is it God doing the blessing, or is it the priest doing the blessing? Now, we know from all the way through the Bible, even through to Numbers so far, that in the beginning, God creates the heavens and the earth, and then he shares his dominion with man. God loves a partnership. There's always God doing something, there's always man doing something, and the two should be working together. But the actual wording is, the Lord is blessing you. The Lord is making his face to be with you and to be present to you. The Lord is the one who wants to look at you, not the priest. So the priest isn't doing the blessing. He's announcing the blessing, but he is not doing the blessing. So his participation is simply to say the words, right? Which is exactly what happens with confession. So when you have in the traditional churches a thing called confession, the priest doesn't forgive you of your sins. Okay? What they say is the priest says the words that come from God. Does that make sense? Right? So we're sometimes we've got some of the criticism of traditional churches. They go, oh, you can't have a man stand up and tell people their sins are forgiven. I mean, you can, Jesus said so, but that's not the point. The point is they're actually using this text to say, this is what we're doing. The priest is not dying on the cross. The priest is not doing any shedding his blood. What he's doing is he is announcing to humans what God has done and is doing for people. Okay, so there's a partnership, but he himself is not doing. And in fact, in Jewish tradition, and in synagogues to this day, just so people know that it is not the Kohen who's giving the blessing. Okay, this has to be done by a Kohen, a descendant of Aaron to this day. Okay, you actually have to turn your face away, so you're not looking at the Kohen. So when the guy stands up and gets ready and he does his thing, everybody hides their face. Okay, so that they're not looking at a man and they're not saying the man is giving me the blessing. They're hearing words, but they've got to be thinking it's God giving me the blessing. Interesting. I haven't seen anybody do that in church. I'm not going to tell them to do that on Sunday, but I did find that very interesting. That's the reason why they do this. There's a few times where in the synagogue service, I noticed that people always hide their face, and I've been sometimes trying to make notes of when that happens, but it always occurs during the Aaronic benediction. Okay, which is I found that also to be quite interesting. And then the rest of this chapter is a retelling of who's bringing various offerings and things. It's sort of like almost like a verbatim retelling of all these things that were given to the tabernacle to have it all set up. And then the actual Torah portion ends with another beautiful but also very strange sentence, verse 89. When the Lord entered the tent of meeting to speak with the Lord, he heard the voice speaking to him from between the cherubim, above the atonement cover, on the Ark of the Covenant. And in this way, the Lord spoke to him. So you've got a specific place. Now remember, this is not prayer. Moses doesn't come into the tabernacle and pray to hear the Lord, right? And he doesn't do it in his own tent, doesn't do it while wandering around the wilderness. Okay, you have a specific spot, and you go to that spot, and it's in that spot that you actually hear the voice of heaven. And it's not a prayer, it's a dialogue, right? That nobody else has this ability to talk to God like this. No one, right? Not even Aaron. Aaron can't do this. He's got to do the whole little lights and buttons thing, right? The magical breastplate, or he's got to read the Bible to hear the word of God. But Moses has this very, very direct thing, and it's not prayer. And it's in a spot, which of course then begs all kinds of questions. Who is he talking to? How is it that God can localize his voice just to this spot? And that's part of the mystery that runs through the Hebrew Bible, which plays up for those that are following into the Christian calendar, which on this Sunday is called Trinity Sunday, where it's the only Sunday that's actually dedicated to doctrine. Every other time Christians meet on Sunday, you talk about what God has done. Some sort of event, a parable, a teaching, a salvific event. But you have one Sunday of the year in the lectionary, for those that follow it, that's dedicated to, this is actually a doctrine. And it's called Trinity Sunday, and it's where the preachers have to get up and they have to talk about, yep, you guessed it, the Trinity, which scares the pants off every preacher. Why? Because if you talk about the Trinity for more than 5 minutes, it's heresy. Okay, somebody will go, well, that's wrong, Aaron. You can't say that. Try and describe the mystery of God. It's impossible. So I always start my sermons like this: the Trinity is not rocket science. It's worse. I can put a man on the moon, but I can't talk to you about. I can't describe how God's undescribable. But the ambiguity and the mystery has always been in Hebrew Bible, right from the beginning. God makes the world. God makes the world. I get it. But then God who's outside of time, right? Time doesn't have any bearing on him. So in Genesis 1, God makes the world. Genesis 2, God rests on the Sabbath. How is that possible? It's not possible. How can God, who's outside of time, be affected by time? It's not possible. God rested for 24 hours. 24 hours mean nothing to him, right? There's no way that that could actually physically happen. And yet the Bible says it did. And so you create this mystery, right? There's very much ambiguity. How can God allow himself to be influenced by his own creation? Ooh, now we've got all kinds of mysteries going on. And God's doing the same thing here. God, who's absolutely everywhere, who there's no way that he can be contained, somehow goes to a certain spot. And Moses knows exactly where that spot is. And that's where I hear from God directly. And so you get this mystery. Who is Moses talking to? All right? It's really kind of cool how this sort of stuff appears. And it's not the only place, okay? Later on in Deuteronomy, Moses is going to tell the Israelites that when you pray, look up. Right? He's not going to say, go to a certain spot. He's going to tell people that sort of more generic idea. All right, so that's Nasso. Lots in there, absolutely fantastic. All right. So then in Numbers chapter 8, which starts the next one, Beha'alotekha, okay, which is when you go up, when you ascend. What's he ascending? He's ascending to do light in the tabernacle. So Aaron and his children have to make sure that that there's light in the tabernacle, the menorah. So this is, of course, brings out all kinds of questions. So first one, why does God need light in the first place? Like what's the point? So every day Moses and his sons go in and they make sure that there's light in the tabernacle. For who? There's no one in there. Well, if it's for Aaron and his sons, when they go in, they could bring candles. Okay, there's no need to have this thing perpetually burning for absolutely no one. If you were going into the tabernacle, which you do very rarely, then you could bring your own torch. It would actually make a lot more sense, wouldn't it? Bring your own torch, put it up there, light, and do your stuff, and then blow all the candles out and away you go. And then what happens on the Sabbath when you're not supposed to make fire? Right? What we discover is that in the tabernacle and in the temple, Sabbath doesn't exist. What do I mean it doesn't exist? I mean, it does exist, but the actual rules for the Sabbath don't apply to the service in the temple, right? So whatever you could do whatever you're not allowed to do on the Sabbath, you can do inside the sacred space. Because they're going to be making light, they're going to be working, they're going to be doing all these kinds of things. All right. So what do they do with the light? Where does it come from? Why bother? And so what they do is they'll say, the Jewish people will say, well, obviously the light isn't for God, because God is light. So it must be for us. Okay, so how was it for us? Well, if the light is always for us, and we're meant to be shining the light, again, it's metaphorical, it's allegorical. So they will have a story, a midrash. Remember, what's a midrash? I hear you ask. It's a story that's not true that tells the truth. Okay, it'll say that when Solomon built the temple had windows, and the windows were made like this. They were small inside the temple, but really wide outside. So the light was always meant to go out, right? That the temple was always meant to be a conduit for heaven. It was like a router. Okay, heaven was supposed to touch the earth from the temple and head out. And so the sort of idea that the light was to be shared with the entire world. And again, this is it's their calling. So then you have this section where you have to again take Levites, and the Levites have to be separated from the other people, from amongst all the community, and they have to become ceremonially pure. They have to become pure. Now the word to take, kach et Leviim, take the Levites, that's the same word for take as a wife, right? So he took a woman, hukach isha, he took a woman to himself. So there is this sort of very special relationship that goes on, and these are going to be the shepherds of the people. They're going to be the judiciary and the army chaplains and all that kind of stuff. So they have to be pure. Shepherds have to be a pure people, right? You can't just take anybody to be a leader. Got to be special. And once you get into the New Testament, you find the same sort of rules. What does Paul say to choosing leaders? He says it's got nothing to do with how many degrees they've got on the wall. It's got to do about their character, their morality. Are they actually a pure people? And how do you make people pure? All right. You shave all their hair off. Right? I mean, here we go, people. Get the Brazilians ready. Okay. This is a very interesting thing. Like, to take the Levites and make them ceremonially clean. I will do so, Moses. Now, how am I supposed to do that? Purify them. How do you do it? Sprinkle water. That seems like a bit of fun. Okay. And then shave their whole bodies. I'm sorry, what? Okay, why would I be? What are you talking about? So in the Nazarite, right, he's got a vow. He's going to be looking very different to the rest of these dudes, right? Okay, because he's going to have long hair and look like a hippie, and these guys, they're going to look like Vin Diesel. Okay, these guys are going to look like, you know, a guy done. There's no hair on him. So why? This again now creates a modern day tradition where impurity, which starts inside, remember everything starts inside and comes out, right? It's not what goes in your mouth that's important, it's what comes out of it. So impurity comes out of you. And in Jewish thought, why are we shaving off our hair? What's wrong with hair? Nothing wrong with hair. Beards are great. But then they would say, well, actually, as the impurity is coming out, it's literally attaching to your hair follicles. So hair contains impurity. So if you want to do anything pure, you actually shave everything, wax everything. So guess what, ladies? You might want to delete this one off this thing. When you get married, guess what you do? Okay, they have wax parties. Okay, and so do the men. Okay, and it's full body stuff. Okay, so there is the people in Brazil, they have nothing on Israel. Okay. So this is, could you imagine this is actually going on in Meir Sharim amongst the Orthodox to this day? Yes. And so if you happen to be ever in Israel or around Jewish communities, particularly Orthodox communities, you might be walking along and you'll see hairdressing salons, and then you'll see full body waxing salons. And you think, man, why? Gee, there's a lot of those floating around out here. Why are they doing all that for? Are they getting it from this verse? Okay, they're looking at these at this section, and they go, well, if we want to be pure and we want to be doing pure things, and one of the most, and because it's used, the word is kach, take an Israelite like a wife, a Levite like a wife, then they say when a husband and a woman are going to be being united for the first time, that is the most purest moment for them and God, right? It's a very pure time, so there will be no hair, and which is again, as you know, in Israel, a lot of women shave their hair and then start wearing wigs or headscarves or various things, and this is often where this stuff is coming from. They have Bible verses to back up some of their traditions. Okay, so there you go. That's an interesting thought, that that impurity actually gets leached into something physical, and then you got to remove it. And you actually see that in other traditions. At Passover, you get rid of yeast. What's wrong with yeast? You use it every other day of the year. Can't be that bad, but it has a physical and spirit. The physical and the spiritual, they link sometimes. You have to physically remove stuff, or as a Nazarite, physically grow stuff. I find that quite interesting, that the physical and the spiritual often blend together, and so that's why when I hear now I'm talking about the Greek Orthodox, not that any of us are Greek Orthodox, but in the Orthodox tradition, they like to create a special place in their houses where they might pray. And so they'll, a little desk up, maybe a little icon, a couple of candles, something like that's the spot. And it becomes very physical, and they link the spiritual and the physical very, 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 very close together. Prayer rooms and prayer closets and things like that, which we have in the more Protestant world, are exactly the same, where a physical thing takes on a very spiritual place. And for here, hair was a big deal. And then you get in Numbers chapter 9, you get the one of the only recordings that they ever celebrated Passover after Passover. Okay, so they've had Passover, which is the Exodus bit, and they actually had the Passover in Egypt, and there was a variety of things that they had to do. Right now, here you get the timing of Passover, and note it's in the first month. Right, so they're in the first month of the second year, and they say so. The first month of the year is actually supposed to be the spring, right? The current calendar we're in the fall, right? Rosh Hashanah is in the fall, but when you read the Bible, the literal beginning of the year should have been in the spring, and you celebrate on the twilight of the 14th in accordance with all its rules and regulations. Well, again, what rules and regulations? We haven't got a Seder. We're not going to put blood on the doorpost. Why are we not putting blood on the doorpost? There's no angel of death, right? That was Egypt. That was a one-off, right? So, what rules and regulations are we doing? Are just the ones where we cook and eat it with our sandals on and all that kind of stuff, or do we do something else? And so we begin to start making traditions. Right, there's a lot of room for interpretation here, which is where you get, by the time of Jesus, lots of things. So in the actual Exodus, we're told to eat in haste with your sandals standing up. What do we find the disciples doing? Reclining at the table. Right, there's no wine listed in Exodus, but there's 4 cups of wine by the time of Jesus. Right, you've got these kinds of things going on. So celebrate Passover with its rules, but we don't have any rules at the moment. Okay, and so this is their. So they've had one Passover in Egypt. Now we have our first Passover in the desert, and it's going to look different. It's going to be different from the first one, and they're all now going to be different. But the same thing happens with birthdays. You have a birthday, and when you're young, they seem to be really, really important. And they have, you invite all your friends and all that kind of stuff. And then as you get older, they get a little less important. And sometimes you have a little less friends, except special ones like turning 40, turning 50, turning 35, or whatever is the deal. And the same goes with Passover. Okay, as you go through history, you begin to modify and develop and change the way you actually do it based on where you are, who you are, and how you actually physically want to celebrate it. But one of the things you have to do is make sure that you're pure. Okay. Now, we're not all having big wax parties for this, but if you do happen to be impure, you're not allowed to have your eat. And so you end up with this little interesting little scenario where a bunch of people say, look, we've actually been burying dad and we can't, we're impure, what can we do? And so you're allowed to have a second Passover a month later, which you still do to this day. Okay, there's actually a second Passover. If for some reason you were unable to celebrate Passover, you were traveling, you were in prison, you were running away from the Nazis, whatever is the deal, then if you actually you can actually have Passover again another month later, but you do it in the same way, with all the same regulations. And what's interesting in this case is the non-Jews allowed to celebrate. Okay, it says if the foreigner who's living amongst you wants to celebrate, okay, he has all the same rules. Isn't that interesting? So Jews and Gentiles can celebrate this redemptive story, and now it's not happening in Egypt. So now it definitely is a memorial, right? So now we're definitely making some theological themes being added to the festival now. And who's allowed to join in? The foreigner, the stranger, the non-Jew is allowed to keep it, and he's also allowed to keep the second one as well, right? I was traveling, or I didn't know, or whatever reason, or I was actually waiting on the table during the first one. Can I have a second one? And the answer was yes. All right. So in verse 23, you again get some more little mysterious commands or sentences. In verse 23, it'll say, at the Lord's command they encamped, and at the Lord's command they set out. They obeyed the Lord's order in accordance with his commands through Moses. So the people of Israel will move around and make camp at the command of the Lord. Okay? But what is the Lord's command? Well, one way is it's very nonchalantly just said it was through Moses. So whenever Moses said, that was God, right? Moses was the literal mouthpiece of the Lord. The Israelite, the actual average Israelite did not hear the voice of heaven. Okay, you have this cloud which moved around and sort of it seems like it was the thing that was telling people when they should or shouldn't move, although verse 23 concludes, no, it was actually Moses, right? So what does Israel see? They only see Moses. They don't hear God, they only hear Moses. So what does that teach a shepherd? A lot of responsibility. Okay, shepherds are supposed to be incredibly responsible. If they are going to be the mouthpieces of God, if they are going to be the ones that are going to be proclaiming the word of the Lord, then they had better be careful what they're saying. So hence the reason why when you take them apart, they are like being married to God, the phrase kach. But notice Israelites are actually married. Yeah, I'm not going to have a debate whether you should or shouldn't get married if you're serving the Lord. Paul's got his thoughts on that too, by the way. But there is responsibility. Okay, there's a massive amount of responsibility for all shepherds when they're going to be in the place of God and actually direct the people. And then the next thing we make is a bunch of silver trumpets, which they often use them for preparing people for war. And war is a hard concept for people to understand who are always at peace, right? It's very easy for us who live in the West, where war is absent from us now for many generations. And when wars do happen, we always send our soldiers somewhere else. We never see it except on TV. And if we don't want to see it, we don't have to watch it. Okay. And so it's very easy for us to make a lot of value judgments very quickly about when you can or when you shouldn't make war. We can, all those utopia ideas that one day we'll make war, no war. That's absolutely true. But the reality for the Jewish people is that they were actually going to have to fight. And that included taking the land, right? The land that God is giving them, they will actually have to fight for. Okay, the walls of Jericho will come down, but that's going to be the only one, right? And so you create these things, and it's going to be the priests again. Okay, they're not going to be removed from this situation. They're going to actually have to summon people for war, and that's going to have a burden on them, because when you summon people for war, what happens? People die. Not just people on the bad guy's side, but on your side as well. And sometimes people forget that, and here I'm going to be a little bit critical of some of my brothers and sisters. Sorry about that. People will say, well, there are certain people groups who just shouldn't be there, so they should move. We should relocate these people, and Israel should have all of Israel. And you go, okay, well, who's going to do that then? Well, the army will. Well, who's that then? You want some 18-year-old kid to start doing this horrible thing of force moving humans from one place to another, and all the psychological pain that's going to come from that, and then probably the danger? I mean, you're nuts. Yeah, be really careful when being hungry for war. It happens. And that's the sad part. That's why the prophets are always saying we're looking forward to times when there's no war right now. But at the same time, we do have to fight. It does happen, yes. And when it does fight, you really want God on your side. Hence, you realize in the Psalms that King David even says, "You, the Lord, prepare my hands for battle." Right? And again, all leaders of Israel have all killed people. The only one, right? You pick a leader of Israel in the Bible, they're all killers. Not murderers, apart from David, but they're killers. There's a difference between murder and killing. All right, so there's this interesting blend, again, of judiciary and war, and as in a trumpet. And then the Israelites are actually instructed to leave Sinai. So they're going to move away from where they've been. They've been there for quite some time. They have had the instruction to build the tabernacle. They have actually done so. And then they're off. It took them 9 months to build. And in verse 29 of chapter 10, is it 29 of chapter 10? Oh, no, sorry. Verse 29, chapter 10, Moses said to Hovav, son of Reuel, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law. I was like, hang on, I thought his name was Jethro. Right now we suddenly discover that he's got a whole bunch of names. And Reuel means the shepherd of God. Okay, so he's got a really cool name. And again, who is Midian? Midian is actually one of the children of Keturah from Abraham, right? So Abraham had a chunk of kids, right? He had like a lot more than just two. Okay, once he had his second wife, he had a whole bunch, and then he had a whole bunch of sons and daughters through concubines who don't even get names. So there's a lot of people who are descendants from Abraham. And of course, when they go out, Abraham would have taught them. What would he have taught them? He would have taught them God. So it's very possible and most likely that Jethro and Midian are not pagan worshippers at this stage. They're actually God-fearers. And Moses actually wants a couple of his in-laws, come along with me. It'll be great. We're off to the Holy Land, etc., etc. And they have a little discussion about who should come, including some family members. And but it's very interesting why he wants him to come, because we're setting out to the place that the Lord will give us. And this is verse 29. Come with us and we'll treat you well, for the Lord has promised good things. And then he says, no, I really want to go back to my own people. And then in verse 31, but Moses says, please don't leave us. You know where we should camp in the wilderness. Why bother saying this stuff when you've actually got the pillar of cloud by day and the fire by night, and you talk to God who tells you where to go? There's no need to make this stuff up. You know where we should camp. But you've got some pretty high intelligence on another level. So you end up with these little expressions in the text that seem to give some different nuances to who is really directing the camp. Okay, and but Moses, it seems that Moses managed to keep some of his family around. Okay, and whether he was tricking them or not remains, I guess, to be seen. And then out of all this really good stuff, okay, what does Israel do? We complain, and you end up with this very interesting little, not interesting, it's almost quite terrible sometimes, but verse 11, it says the people complain to God in the hearing of the Lord. You mean people were complaining and he didn't hear it? And when he did hear them, he got a little angry. And then fire came out and he burnt the outskirts of the camp. Where's God? God's in the middle of the camp. But who's actually getting burnt? The people on the outside of the camp. So it's a whole bunch of questions get that open up here. First of all, we need to understand that in the Bible, it's not chronological. I mean, it is chronological in the effect that Genesis is the start and Revelation is the end. But after that, it's not. Okay, you're never 100% sure where this story actually comes from and which bit it appears in. Same with the New Testament. The Gospels are not chronological. They have a beginning bit. He gets born, yeah, and there's an ending bit where he dies and resurrects, yep. But in the middle, you get a little confusing. And the same with the epistles. The epistles of Paul are not chronological. They're ordered, biggest to smallest, which is not chronological at all. Okay, and the same with the non-Pauline. It starts with Hebrews and then it goes all the way down to Jude. Okay, and the Hebrew Bible is the same. And so exactly when does 11 fit with 10? No one's sure, because there's no context to this. It's just people are complaining about what? Their hardships. Okay, and I mean, they complained in Egypt. They're complaining outside of Egypt. Maybe they're just complainers. And God hears. Well, when did he not hear? When does God actually hear and not hear? And this is again one of those little mysteries. When God is outside of time, he's what we would say omnipotent, right? He's everywhere. He's omnipresent. He's he's everywhere. Time has no bearing for him. But when he's inside time, he's localized. He can physically be in one place, which means he's physically not in another. How does that work? Same with Jesus. When Jesus was in the Galilee, right? Did he hear what was going on and being spoken of in Jerusalem? Right? These kinds of things. And so here you have this very similar ambiguity. Okay? What I mean by ambiguity, it's a mystery that's unexplained, and I am not going to be able to explain it. Okay, it's one of those things. Okay, the Lord hears, or how did he not hear? He heard. He got angry. Why did he get angry? If he's omnipresent, omnipotent, he knew these guys were going to do this when he took them out of Egypt. Could have just burnt them then, right? You know, like, here, welcome, I got you out of Egypt. Now you absolutely ungrateful little people, set yours all on fire, right? But instead, you have this sort of anger idea. God gets angry, and then you have this quail incident. The people are the people are craving food. You know, they've got a miracle which they see absolutely every day, but it's not enough. Okay, once you've got too much of a miracle, bad, right? Is it? This is an interesting Torah portion. It actually gives you the description and taste of manna. Now we even know what the bread of heaven tastes like, right? Coriander, olive, and a little dash of honey. Okay, and you would eat it, but it wasn't enough. So then you have to get meat. But they are complaining, we don't have any meat. But they do have meat. They have all these cows and sheep. But those are for sacrifices. those are for dairy. Because if we ate them all, then we'd have nothing left to sacrifice and worship the Lord, and would have no dairy. So what did they eat? Which meat did you actually eat in Egypt? Well, pork, which you're not allowed to have. So that was like a forbidden meat. So they're running around going, look, we've got all these, and we've got no meat. By the way, just so you know, the Middle Ages did exactly the same thing. Okay, peasants had sheep, and you only ate them when they keeled over and died. It was called mutton, right? Because you didn't want to throw. You wanted to eat, and chickens. You didn't eat chicken. You only ate eggs, right? It was all this food running around, and people were starving. A lot of cultures do that. India does it today, right? All these cows just walking around doing absolutely nothing because they're holy and sacred. Israel had the same thing. Loads of flocks that were used for a certain purpose, and they were not seen as food. We need some food, and the Lord provides quail. And then you end up with this interesting part where God, so the Lord says to Moses, bring me 70 elders and come to the tent of meeting. I'll come and speak with you like he normally does, right? And I will take some of the power of the Spirit and you put it onto them, and they'll share the burden. And so then that's what Moses does. So Moses, it says Moses put the Spirit on people. So, okay, I'll read verse 24. So Moses went out, he told the people what the Lord had said. He brought together 70 of the elders, and he had them stand around the tent. Lord comes down, speaks with Moses, and then he took some of the power of the Spirit that was on him, and he put it on the 70 elders. You're like, wow, that's pretty awesome. How did he do that? Not sure. Did he do the laying on of hands or something? Not sure. And what did they do? They prophesied. What is prophecy, I hear you ask? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. And then they didn't do it again. Meanwhile, there are two elders who didn't make it for all kinds of reasons. Who really knows? But Eldad and Medad, and the Holy Spirit falls on them, and they prophesy. Then Joshua comes along and says to Moses, the other guys are prophesying, we need to stop them. And Moses says, what are you talking about? Are you jealous for my sake? I wish that all of Lord's people would prophesy, and that the Lord would put their Spirit on him, right? Who does that sound like? Paul. He says exactly the same thing. I would have it that you all prophesy. Not only that, Joel chapter 2, the Spirit of the Lord is going to be upon everybody, and everybody's going to prophesy. So let's figure out, if we can, from this context, what prophecy is. And here's what I'll tell you what it's not. It's not predicting the future. That's not prophecy. Why would I be able to argue that? Let's imagine that that both Moses and Paul's wish comes true. Everyone can prophesy. Now let's get everybody here gathered, and we're all sitting in a room, and we're all prophesying. What will we have to say to each other? Doris, tomorrow you're going to go out and buy a red car. And Doris says, yeah, I know. I've got the spirit of prophecy too. Oh, yeah, that's right. Aaron, tomorrow you're going to go out and have a cappuccino at Starbucks. Yeah, I know, Doris. I got the spirit of prophecy too. If everyone's a prophet, you've got nothing to say to each other. If prophecy is telling the future, because you all know the future. So suddenly we realize that actually prophecy might not, if we limit prophecy to just telling the future, we have a very poor view of prophecy. So what is it? Still not 100% sure. It seems to have something to do with describing the works and wonders of God, because that's what prophets do, right? They call people to repentance. They come in and they say, look, you've done something bad, stop it, right? Not 100% sure, but I can tell you what it's not. It's not just telling the future. And then God gets angry again, and then so there is this thing about God getting angry twice now, and things happening. And what's interesting is I thought a little bit about this, about the wrath of God and God being angry. And I've been asked to give a teaching on the wrath of God to another group of people. But in chapter 3 of Colossians, there is this incident where Paul says, chapter 3, Colossians, verse 5, put to death, right, which is a form of repentance, whatever belongs to your earthly nature, particularly sex, sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil disease, desires, and greed, which is idolatry. Because of these, the wrath of God is coming. Right? You get this anger. But my English translation always puts it in the future. The Greek's actually present. Right? So, okay, so God gets angry, even today. Okay, and so things happen, and God, and the it's an interesting study. When I finally make some notes, maybe we could have a little special session on it at some stage. This is very important. Okay, it shows up here in the Torah, but it shows up all over Scripture. Okay, one of the emotions of the Lord. Okay, so then the last section is the introduction of another concept, Lashon Hara. So the last couple of Torah portions have given us interesting about how the religious people don't have to go to the army, and what you do when you get married and have pure, and why we've got lots of body wax shops around Israel. Here we've got this thing called Lashon Hara, where you have Miriam and Aaron, the brother sister, have they challenge Moses on not his leadership style, not the fact that God talks to him and not them, not any of those kinds of things. Who he's married to, right? And they, because his wife is Cushite, and what does Cushite mean? Well, in modern Hebrew, in ancient Hebrew, Cush is Ethiopian, although honestly, his wife is Midianite, right? But what are they referring to here? They're referring to the color of his skin, right? She's black, and they're saying, look, Moses, this is just not the done thing, man. We're the Hebrew people. You need, and you don't. You're our leader, and you don't reflect who we are. And so he's making, what's the? And then you get the phrase, verse 3. Now Moses was a very humble man, and more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. Why would you throw that sentence in? Okay. And this is what they call, this is a comment by a redactor. This is not, so sentences get added into the Bible over time. It scares the pants off some people to think that, but Moses didn't write, oh, by the way, I'm as humble as all, I'm incredible. That's how humble I am. I shall tell everybody how humble I am, but here, Moses doesn't fight back. Why not? Because it's the truth. Right, and that's what Lashon Hara, or the evil tongue, is. It's telling the truth about somebody. And well, why is telling the truth about somebody bad? You're supposed to always be telling the truth. Well, sometimes people use the truth to hurt people, and there are some times where you don't have to tell the truth. That doesn't tell a lie. It's just don't use the truth to hurt people. And so there's no way that Moses can defend himself. He can't say, no, my wife's not black. Because she is, right? Yeah, and God's not happy with this. So Miriam, not Aaron, Miriam gets struck with leprosy. Why can't Aaron get struck with leprosy or some sort of skin disease? Because he actually has to serve in the temple, right, in the tabernacle. That might be one reason, but it doesn't actually give any other reason. There's actually no reason. And so she has to be taken outside the camp, which is what we were given, purity laws, right? Where isolation, and then they pray for her repentance and healing, and she comes back into the fold. But the story that they get given is that this is the evil tongue, and the evil tongue is the telling of the truth that to hurt people, so they have no defense. And so the tongue is, again, a very powerful weapon used for blessing, but it can also be used for cursing, and it can also be using for hurting people. Hence, you see in the New Testament very whole chapters describing how we've got to get it under control. And unfortunately, ever since Numbers, going on into James and into our world today, we still don't. We still have a lack of control, which is a real shame. Okay, so a lot there in our portions. Many of these two portions still have relevance and bearing into what's going on today. Okay, they still affect Israelite society to this day, and so, okay. I hope that you've had an enjoyment. Got some questions? Anything that we might want to discuss? Anything there that you hadn't seen before?
That was amazing teaching, a lot in there. Thank you for sharing that whole about the allegory thing, because I've thought of that before, wondering how does this apply, so that was really great. And as you spoke, like you said, it really is a word to us too, like to the church. Are we pregnant? Like, are we being faithful to the Lord? Because if we are, then we will become pregnant with his spirit in a greater way and be fruitful. So It's so pertinent to us today. Absolutely. So good. I did have a question that I wasn't clear on when you were talking about printing out the name of God. That is, I never heard about that. So that's amazing. When you type it out and the computer says, do you really want to print this out? So, because I had heard, and I'm not sure, do they still actually, they do write out Yud He Vav He? Like, is that what you're referring to, or are you referring to Adonai?
Okay, so what I'm referring to is the actual name of God, Yud He Vav He, which is possible to print. So say, for example, I am preparing a lecture. I'm a professor and I'm typing away, and I decide to cut and paste a verse from scripture, as my proof text. So I actually take the name of God, cut it, and I move it over and put it in my thing, and I get to press print. Now I actually have Yud He Vav He on a piece of paper, not the Dagesh, the little short form of Adonai, like just a Hey with a stroke, or Hashem or something like that. That doesn't get it. That doesn't cause any problems. It's only when the computer recognizes you've actually got the name of God here, and it pops up a warning and says, are you sure you want to do that?
Right. And so normally, say a professor, unless it's actually quoted from scripture, they would just say usually Hashem or some other.
Correct. So you begin to get things like Elohim, where instead of saying Elohim, they put a K in there. Or they'll just put a Hey with a little Yud at the top. And that tells everybody Adonai. Or sometimes I'll put in two vavs, and you just straighten the two vavs, and you're like, what is that? And that's it. All these different crazy ways of to say the name of God without writing the name of God, thus allowing them at the end of their lecture to rip up the pages and put them away. But things like Bibles, which have the name of God in, the real name of God, right? They can't be destroyed at any time. They have to be sent to places where they are stored or buried, which is an interesting thing to say. And that's an old tradition, which we have from archaeology. The Jews have been doing this for thousands of years. You find every ruined synagogue that we come to has what they call the Geniza, has the place where they kept the old scrolls and anything that had the name of God on, and so we have those.
Mm-hmm. So good. And I think that's a great idea. I would love to hear your teaching on the wrath of God. We'll have to share that. Like if you can either give it to us and we can do a special teaching.
Or do our own special one, perhaps, and just say,
because that would be very interesting for many people. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Sorry, did you have something to say?
Yeah, just because it appears in in this Torah portion where everything's going swimmingly, and then all of a sudden we're burning people, and you go, what happened there? And if he's that, is he this angry? Is he this contentious that he's good 1 minute and then 1 minute he's not? And do you have to guard your lips at any time? Anytime you say anything bad, he's going to come and get you, because that's where you get the terrible idea that God is just this grumpy old guy who hangs around a corner with a big hammer, and as soon as he hears you doing something, he jumps out and smacks you, right? And as opposed to what the Torah is saying, it's a love story. Be fruitful, have light, shine it out. Be pure, be holy, we're going to be wedded to each other, and we're going to take all our impurities off, and I'm going to be in your camp, and even when you go to war, my little dudes are going to be there blowing their trumpets. There's a lot of things there that are all very positive, and then you get these crazy little verses, and then we burned a bunch of people, and you're like,
Wow. I have a question about the hair of Samson. What is the significance of the hair, especially if you want to be pure, you shave?
Right, no, exactly. That's what makes the dichotomy so very interesting. When you're separating yourself just to God, how does everybody know you're doing this? You're growing all your hair. Whereas when you're being pure, you're shaving it all off. And so people are having people are knowing when the people are doing stuff, because they can see if there's a physical mark on their bodies or not on their bodies. For Samson, it was very interesting because that was his strength. Now, he's the only guy who gets that. So he's like the exception proving the rule, right? It's because that didn't happen to John the Baptist. John the Baptist isn't this long-haired hippie, and everyone goes, well, he was preaching up a storm, and then he threw, 3 bricks in the air and caught them on his finger, and tipped up cows. Guy was a giant. You don't get any of that at all. So Samson's case is very different, and then you need to investigate why he's different. Once you get the anomaly, you run in and go, why? What is God doing through him, and what's his life like? We've got this Israelite guy who has a Nazarite vow from birth, who's completely obsessed with Canaanite women, and you're like, dude, what is your issue? But God uses him, and so maybe there's lots of stories in there too. But it is interesting. The Nazarite who's separating himself, which the vow is not mentioned. No one knows what they're dedicating themselves to or for why. They have a hair thing. But then once the vow is done, you shave it all off, right? And then the same with the priests. I mean, I can't imagine what that would have looked like on that day, right? 20,000 men getting waxed, right? Could you imagine what that like? It's a rip, and then the guy goes, I don't know why anyone would want to do this more than once. I mean, this is nuts. Okay, how do we have to do this? And then they're all looking at each other. So, who wants to wax the fun bits? No, not me, man. But that why? I don't know why. It's a thing and so it creates this very interesting theology that the Jewish people have to this day, that hair contains some impurity in it, and so they And when girls get married, all her friends, her girlfriends, they all do the same, right? They don't let the poor lady suffer all on her own. Okay, they have wax parties. Ugh. Okay, why can't they just have a normal hen's night? Okay, but no, we're gonna have a thing.
Thank you.
Here, and for chapter 7, there's this list of all what the leaders are bringing,
Yep.
on that day. Is there significance? Because I kind of tuned out after reading like a couple of the leaders to say.
Yes,
it's
a replay. Okay, it's
an inventory,
but it's already been done. It's been for some reason they have this idea of repetition. And there's almost no variation in the language. It's almost verbatim. There's a few little things, but it's and they've almost got very little comment other than people bring stuff. I looked to see if there was an allegory. Were they trying? Did any of these people go on and do something great? Because it gives you a whole bunch of people's names.
Yes.
It gives you their lineage, gives you their tribal grouping, and then they disappear in human history. Now, if this was hagiography, does anyone know what hagiography is? It's the lives of the saints. You can always go to the Greek Orthodox and the Catholics, and you can say, what did Saint Bartholomew do? And they will tell you, he did this, and you wonder where they come up with this stuff. But everybody's got a story, right? Like Timothy. Anyone know what Timothy did? But no, the Bible doesn't say, right? So according to hagiography, he ends up becoming the leader of the community in Ephesus, right? Or the bishop of Ephesus. So he gets to work with John, right? So he works with Paul, but then Paul obviously doesn't live past getting his head chopped off. Timothy continues on, and he lives until he's in his 80s when he finally gets martyred, but he works with John, and they work together in the church in Ephesus. Okay, how do we know that? We have no idea how we know that. Okay, this is just an oral tradition which is recorded by the church, called hagiography. A lot of fun. But the Jewish people, they don't do a lot of that for people who have names. What they do is where they find people who don't have names, and then they give them names, and then they give them stories. Okay, they always do the reverse. So they'll go, there was a man from Levi who did X, and they'll give him a name, and they'll give him a background story, and they'll tell him what he did even after the event. Noah has a wife. Well, she's not named. We'll call her Naamah, and we'll give her all kinds of really cool powers and stories as well. And but for here, you have a repetition, and they have almost no comment other than they paid up and they built the thing. So.
And then in that allegory that you had talked about and Melody brought up, it says that the spirit of jealousy came upon the person. So are they actually referring to a spirit, or is it, it's just generally Israel? So that part I didn't understand.
It is the phrase literally is the spirit of jealousy. So the husband is jealous and he doesn't know why. Right? He's suspicious. Like, why is he hasn't caught her? Because if he'd caught her, we've got rules for that. Right? This is a suspicion, and so they call it the spirit of jealousy. And then but then once they start playing in the allegory, they don't say that God has a spirit of jealousy. They play out the relationship between Israel and God as husband and wife, as supposed to be faithful and fruitful, and etc., etc., etc. But then she's not killed, right? That's the part of where the allegory really comes to light, is that even when she's caught, she's not killed, right? Because imagine, Israel was unfaithful, wiped them out. There'd be no Jesus, right? There's it's quite an interesting allegory how they did it.
Thank you.
And yet, doesn't it say in somewhere in the scriptures that he is jealous for Israel, though.
Correct. The jealousy is not an emotion that's a sin. It's like anger, because God has all of these things. But so he's jealous of his wife, which is Israel, and he's upset when she goes away. He's incredibly patient and he's forgiving. But he is everything not like a human, because he's God, right? And which is absolutely fantastic. And he welcomes her back, etc., etc., etc. And so you end up with beautiful love stories of allegory like Song of Songs, and then you have this interesting allegory here, which describes if she does go to chase foreign gods, she'll get cursed. There won't be the blessings. The blessings will come, but she's going to have to give all those false men up and go back to her first husband, her first love, which is even replayed out in Revelation. Go back to your first love. Can't remember which church the Spirit says to that one, but forgiveness is an amazing thing. If we could actually live like that, oh my gosh, what a world we would be having if we could actually correct our relationships through the real act of forgiveness. My word.
Yeah, truly.
Truly, yeah, indeed. It would be heaven on earth. Yeah. All right.
Any other questions?
I don't know, but I don't know about you guys, but I really like these little sessions because I got to study it, I got to learn it, and then I got to trace through some midrashim, and I always come away going, my gosh, I didn't know that before. That's just awesome. So,
well, we're glad we're helping you out.
Yeah, thank you, Megan.
Because you're helping us out. So
yeah, praise the
It
Lord.
was incredible. Thank you.
Awesome.
yes, indeed. Well, let's
Very
just
good.
close in prayer, and then I'll stop recording. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you. We thank you, Lord, for your word that deepens our hearts, Lord, and just what you did on the cross, Lord, fulfilling everything that we learn, Lord, the more the truth, the revelation, the fullness, Lord, of what you did. And so, Lord, I thank you for the teaching. I thank you for bringing Aaron as a teacher in our hearts, Lord, that your word is expanded in our hearts, Lord. And Lord, may we live a richer life, Lord, because of your word, truly, in our hearts, Lord. And we thank you, Lord, for Holy Spirit who comes in power and governs and guides our lives, Lord Jesus. And so may we go forward and in your name, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Great prayer. Thanks, man.